I want you to look at number 6. What do you notice about this polynomial that's different from the other polynomials that we dealt with? Let me help you out. If I was to try to factor this, it's 4 terms, isn't it? What would I take out of this? Is that going to give, can that be factored? No. Everyone that we're doing right now cannot be factored. So that's what we're doing the rest of the unit is, what do you do when they can't be factored? Okay? And that's what makes these different. We're still finding z, because at this point, you've been factoring them, setting them equal to 0, and they came out easy. You found the zeros. This is what you do when they're not going to come out easy, okay? So I want you to know it's different from what we're about to start. There's a formula called the rational zero formula. The rational zero formula. I can't do the dog. Okay. There's a formula called the rational zero theorem. And that's how you find the possible roots. So right now we're going to learn how to find the possible roots. And I'm going to teach you how to go back and find the actual roots. Okay? So you got to know how to find both of them. You said, why do you need to know the possible? Well, I'm going to teach you that in just a minute. Alright, so the rational zero theorem states that if you take the factors of the last term and divide it by the factors of the first term, that gives you your possible zero list. So this is how I do it. Factors of 2, that's plus or minus 1. And what's another factor that goes into 2? Plus or minus 2. Those are the only numbers. Why you put plus or minus? Because that takes into account the positive and the negative values. And then we'll find the factors of 3. What's the factors of 3? Plus or minus? And plus or minus 3. And the reason I do this one first, because this reminds me, this goes on the top, this divided by that, okay?
Wait, how do you know which?
You always do the factors of the last one first, divided by the factors of the first one. So I'll put that one first, and then that one second. Alright, so here I go. Watch this. I'm going to start plus or minus 1 divided by plus or minus 1. Plus or minus 2 divided by plus or minus 1. So I took all these divided by 1. Now I'm going to take all these and divide by 3. Plus or minus 1 divided by plus or minus 3. Plus or minus 2 divided by plus or minus 3. And then you divide. What's 1 divided by 1? So here's your list of possible. Doesn't mean they have to, but if it was to cross, it's going to cross somewhere one of these values. 2 divided by 1 is 2. 1 divided by 3 is 1/3. 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. So that's my list of possible. And I'm going to teach you how to use that in a little bit. That doesn't mean that it crosses everywhere. That's just the possible locations. Okay? Y'all remember doing this last year? Y'all didn't do possible zeros last year? But very little bit? Okay. And I'm going to tell you why we're doing it in a minute. Alright, now, let's go on and do number 7. Let's just list the possible. So, what factors do you deal with first? Factors of 12. Factors of 12. And then the factors of what? 2, okay? What are all the numbers that go into 12? 1. Well, I do it in pairs. What's 1 times what gives you 12? 12, then 2 times what? And then 3 times, okay, there's your factors of 12. What's factors of 2? 1 and 2. So now I'm going to take every single one of them, divide by 1. Every single one, divide by 2. Okay? So you just list them like in a row. I'm going to go back and divide by that 2. No, but I was going to cover that in just a minute, okay? Yep. I still write them all out, but I don't list it more than once in the final list.
Can you just skip that step and go to possible zeros after you get the factors of them?
And just do it in your head?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
1 divided by 1 is what? 1. 12 divided by 1 is? 2 divided by 1 is? 6 divided by 1 is? 3 divided by 1 is? 4 divided by 1 is? 1 divided by 2 is? 12 divided by 2 is 6, but I already have that list, so I don't have to write it again. 2 divided by 2 is 1, I already have that. 6 divided by 2 is 3, I already have that. I don't have 3 halves. 4 divided by 2 is 2, I already have that. So that's my possible zeros.
Everybody needs a graphing calculator. Everybody have one at their desk?
From now on, if you don't have one, every lesson we do needs a graph calculator. So come in and get one beforehand so we don't have to get up and get one. So we found the possible zeros. You take the factors of the last number divided by the factors of the first number.
Now we want to find the actual zeros, the solution to this polynomial. Okay?
So, what you do, guys, is you go to your graph and you graph it. 3x cubed minus 4x squared minus 5x plus 2. What now, buddy?
Nothing. I was saying that's not.
Now I'm going to hit graph. Now if your graph doesn't come up pretty like that, then we need to check the window. And let's talk about window. You don't move this, but I'm going to match this button, press this button. The window is what your dimensions of your coordinate plane is. If you want a 10 by 10, that means going to 10 on your x-axis, going up to 10, down to negative 10. This is how your window should look. That's your x-min. That means to the left of x is going out to negative 10. That's what you see on your screen. To the right, it's going to maximum 10. Your scale is 1 on the x-axis. Y-min is down to negative 10, up to 10, and Y scale is 1. I don't know what the RES means. I've never figured that out, so don't mess with that. But, what now? Okay, that might be it, yes. But let's say if you're working with graphs that are big and you might need to see something with 1,000, this is where you would go adjust your x to 1,000 or whatever is in this frame, okay? That's the window. That is how it controls what your graph's going to look like. Does everybody understand that? Okay, that's window. And we're going to learn buttons as we go throughout the year, but we need to make sure we know window. All right. Now, did everybody's come up like this? Okay.
So what does the calculator do that we can't find?
What now?
I'm kind of curious how the calculator figures it out.
We ain't had yet. This is a step to help you. Yes, I'm not finished. Yes. Go ahead. You're going to type in that equation right here at that y equals right there. All right, now. What now?
I think my window's missing.
Yeah. And guys, what you're going to do here is you're going to look at your graph and pick. You can see some of the zeros on the graph already, can't you? So you're going to pick one that clearly crosses somewhere. Don't pick one you got to estimate. You want to pick one that clearly crosses.
Oh, we were doing good. I did the 7.
All right. Now, so we're on the first one right here. So, what your goal, guys, is to pick a zero off this graph. Where does it clear? I'm going to start from left. Where's it clear? It's going through what? Negative 1. So I'm going to go and make me a list right here that says zeros. And go and put that as part of my answer. I know that's negative 1. Now, you said, Mr. I see the zeros. Negative 1, 0, and 2. Yes, but they're all not going to be that easy. But this is what you're going to do. After you use the graph to find one of them, you're going to break this down into a quadratic. You're going to break it down until you get a quadratic function, so you can either A, factor it, or do the quadratic formula to prove me the rest of the zeros. Does that make sense? Because quadratic, if we get it down to quadratic, we can either A, factor it, or B, quadratic formula. And you're proving it to me. So, I'm going to break this down using synthetic division. I'm going to list the numbers up here. 3, -4, -5, and 2. And I'm going to put -1 out here. Because if -1 is a 0, wouldn't x plus 1 be a factor of this thing right here? If we think backwards. If -1 is a 0, isn't that a factor of that? So I'm taking this and dividing it by that to get something smaller. So I'm going to bring this 3 down. -1 times 3 is -3. -1 times -7 is 7. -1 times 2 is -2. Should I get a 0 there? Yes, because that's a factor of it, so it should come out to a pre-polynomial, shouldn't it? Alright, so now, it was an x cubed. I'm going to start with this with 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. Now, I'm going to try to factor it. It's got to multiply to give you what? Add to give you -7. I think I can do something like that, can't I? -6 and -1. And see, I'm about to show you something. You thought it was about to go through 0, but in fact, it didn't go through 0. It's going to go through a small fraction. That is why we do this process, because your eyes could be deceiving to you on that calculator. So I get 3x minus 1 and x minus 2. Set them both equal to 0. I get 1/3 and I get 2. So my zeros for that problem are -1, 1/3, and 2. Let's see if we look back to our possible zeros. Were they all in our possible list? Yes. They were in our possible list. But see, y'all, we were about to jump quick and say it was 0, wasn't we? But in fact, it was not 0. It was 1/3. Does that make sense? So guys, we're not going to have a chance to do another one. This is what we're doing all next week. But let's review the steps. You list your possible. You graph it. You pick one off. And you keep breaking down to a quadratic. You either A, factor it, or do a quadratic formula, okay, to find the rest of them. And we're going to continue this. Yes, that will be your zeros. You solved the problem. We're going to continue this on Monday, all day. Monday, Wednesday, and test Thursday. -1, 1/3, and 2 is your answers on that one. I got a question. What if you had an x to the 4th? How many times do you have to do synthetic division? Twice, because you got to pick 2 zeros and get it down to a quadratic. Yes. Somebody said my name. I get what, buddy? Where did I get what 0 from? We got to look at that last one, okay? Which 0?
I did like the slide divide thing.
Say the slide and divide. You only use it if you know how to do that now. I didn't do slide and divide. Hey, this is what I think you did. Here, come here, buddy.
Oh, I see what I did.
Did you not go back and divide by that 3?
I divided by 2. And
Gotcha. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
You come 0 here.
But I got
You got 1 right. You got 1 right.
So that should be x equals 2 and x equals
1/3.
Yeah.